There's a couple of fears that come up. One fear is that people think they're going to look stupid when they first get going. And you know what? Whenever you start doing anything for the first time, you do, it takes a little while to not feel uncomfortable. I mean, I remember about 20 years ago, I spent a lot of time in Sydney and actually stayed on Manly Beach and taught myself how to surf. And I looked like a complete idiot when I was trying to learn how to surf. I mean, I was such a dork, I was like paddle out and people would look at me and, laugh and say, look at this guy. But, I figured it out. I was able to make it happen. And I'm still not great at surfing, but at least I feel comfortable enough to go out without looking like an idiot. And I think part of that's what happens with the fear factor with, say, jumping onto Twitter or starting a blog. You will feel a little bit uncomfortable, but, and I felt uncomfortable the first time I did a blog post and the first time I did a Twitter feed. And a couple of months ago, I got on Foursquare for the first time, and I felt kind of silly when I jumped onto Foursquare for the first time. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The other form of fear that I see is the fear that people will say bad things about you. And that fear kind of runs pretty deep with people. And so a lot of people will resist jumping onto the social networks because they're afraid that someone will start to say bad things. And I if they're going to say bad things, they're going to say bad things whether you're there or not. And if you are out there and they are saying bad things, and by the way, it's very rare that people take the time to say bad things, unless you happen to be in the airline industry, of course, and people say a lot of bad things about airline industry. But what happens if you then engage those people who are saying negative things, you can actually turn them around, and it ends up, believe it or not, being a positive thing, because then all of a sudden they become your fans because they realize, oh my God, this person cares about me, this company cares about me, even though I said something bad, they're engaging me. Maybe they're not such a bad company after all. Maybe this isn't a bad person after all. I wrote a blog post about General Motors about, I guess it was in the summer of last year. It was when they had just gone into bankruptcy, and then they started to come out of bankruptcy. And I basically blogged and said, General Motors, you guys are a bunch of nameless, faceless corporate drones. And no one is paying attention to what you're doing because we don't know who you are. And it was really interesting because within like an hour or 2 hours, the head of social media for General Motors is on my blog commenting and saying, well, yeah, here I am. I'm a real person. I'm like, oh my God, they called me out on this. And then interestingly, his name is Christopher Barger. He invited me to Detroit to go to the headquarters of General Motors, which I did. And I had a half-an-hour meeting with the chairman of General Motors. Now, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I have a popular blog, but I'm not like a major, newspaper or magazine or something. And it was pretty interesting that they engaged me that way. And they had a term for it. They call it a badvocate. So like a bad person who you turn into an advocate. And they had they like worked on me. Showed me these new cars, showed me how they do their social media stuff, how they monitor Twitter, how they found me. And all of a sudden, I'm doing these glowing blog posts about how wonderful they are. They totally turned me around. And I knew they were doing it when they were doing it. It's like, okay, you guys win. I mean, thanks for, hooking me up with the CEO of your company. It's like the CEO of one of the largest companies in the whole world. And here I am in his office chatting with him. So this kind of proves the point. One of the best ways to find me is go to Google, type in the phrase viral marketing, and usually I appear on the first page with an ebook I wrote called The New Rules of Viral Marketing, which is a free download. And the reason I come up on the first page is because it's content that's indexed by the search engines. Or you can go to my blog, which is www.webinknow, which is webinknow.com. Or search my full name, which is David Meerman Scott.